Hi, this is Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we are going to talk specifically about the Dungeon Master Bullet Point Problem Guide. All right. So this is pretty interesting, and I just wanted to say, so first of all, if you don't know what the Dungeon Master Bullet Point Problem is, my apologies. You have some homework to do. You have to watch the video in the doobly-doo below, and that will get you context to understand this video. Apologies, it's just so I don't repeat myself. Thank you. All right, so this is the final discipline that you must master. It is the last bullet point on my initial set of disciplines that a dungeon master must master in order to be an exceptional dungeon master, in order to be just to be a dungeon master. I think you really need to master these. The word master is in Dungeon Master, right? It's calling you to mastery, not just a general level of knowledge. It's calling you to master it, right? And so basically, this is the 10th discipline, the final discipline. I'll collect these up into a nice little playlist so people can go through them. But it's pretty incredible, and this is the last one. And I want to thank you guys for your patience getting through this list and listening to all of these. I have a few people who have really encouraged me to do these series. Series are tough sometimes. People don't like, and when you do anything where you have to point to another video. So I really appreciate everybody's patience going through this. So let's talk about the discipline of guide. Okay, so there's a guidance. Guidance is a discipline. The role is guide, right? What do we guide as dungeon masters? It's huge. It's so big, right? Oh my gosh. Here's what we do when when you sign on to be a dungeon master, you become a guide. Well, what do you guide? It's at 3 levels. 3 levels. It's so insane. Listen to this. All right. You guide players, okay? You guide players into treating each other with respect, okay? And honestly, 4 out of 5 of your players are going to get it right out of the gate. You won't have to help them, but you'll always have one knucklehead who you got to teach, right? And you want to give them a little bit of play before you just kick them out of the game. Want to give them a chance and say, hey, I know you want to play this gritty loner and run off and be cool with your wolf and just kind of thumb your nose at every other player at the table. But the reality is you can't do that. You're going to have to learn to be an actually helpful, useful human being in this game, right? So you have to guide players to treating each other with respect and kindness and tolerance. You have to guide them into mastering the rules, right? And knowing what to do on their turn, right? And you also need to guide them in making sure that their language is acceptable to everybody at the table, not just them and their friend, but it's offending one of the other players, right? You have to guide them as players, just one level, okay? And you'll have to guide different players at different times. And guess what? You'll need to guide them in different ways. The process you use to guide one player will need to be adjusted for another player because often players don't learn in the same way, right? Some you could teach them by literally having a non-player character tell them the information that you want them to know as a player, right? And they'll be like, oh, you said that to my player character, but I, the player, am getting the message, right? And then others, you'll have to take them aside. You might have to send them an email, right? And others, you might have to there's different ways that different people learn. So guidance and all the structures for guiding are all different. It's incredible how difficult even one discipline that Dungeon Master calls you to be is, okay? So you guide players. You also guide players to be dungeon masters, okay? If you don't know this, you should be replacing yourself. You should make sure that you're looking at the 4 knuckleheads who play at your table and saying, this one is the one, right? This is I am the master dungeon master. I hold this title. It rests upon my head the way the crown is supposed to fit. I am the dungeon master. Who's next, right? Who do I bring up? Who do I yank from the hierarchy of player to the deity-like status of Dungeon Master, right? Like, and you're like, that one right there. That one is, there's a player who's very charismatic, very intelligent, very confident, is treating everyone at the table with kindness and respect, right? And is asking me for things, is saying, is getting ready to build their fortress, right? Not only are they mastering their combat, but they see a future for their character, and they've built robust relationships with the other player characters and with non-player characters. They take notes, right? You're like, this is the golden child. This is the next Dungeon Master. Raise them, right? Like, and you do. You pick them up and you mountain carrier them to the top of the mountain, right? Like, you do it, right? And when they're there and you've gotten them to be a dungeon master, your work isn't done. Like, I've had to sit and be in the very bad games of dungeon masters who were brand new, but I had to sit and be patient and be kind and be tolerant and be very patient, right? While there's bad dungeon mastering happening, so that I can be like, you are going to be a great dungeon master someday. It's not going to be in this first 3 years of your dungeon mastering, but I need you to not quit, and I need you, and the next generation needs you to build your dungeon master or your dungeon masters as well, right? So once they're dungeon mastering, you're still guiding them in their dungeon mastering in their early years, right? So dungeon mastering is a level of guidance that you're going to be doing. And it doesn't stop there. You actually guide them in real life. Not every player, all right? You got 5 people around the table. You got 4 or 5 players around the table. Let's say you have 5, right? 4 of them are never going to need your IRL help, okay? But one of them will, all right? This has happened in many campaigns. Not every campaign, but multiple campaigns. People are like, okay, Scott, you're the dungeon master. And the reason you're the dungeon master is you're intelligent, charismatic, and confident, right? And guess what? Those aspects that you display in dungeon mastering, which you probably got from much from dungeon mastering, have also helped you in many ways in your other life, mates in IRL. Like, you're ahead of me professionally. And now I'm transitioning from working at this dead-end job to an actual career. Oh, wait, Scott, you not only have you interviewed multiple times, but you've been on the other side of the interview table. Maybe I have questions about, about my resume, how I interview, like, what do I wear to dress? What do I wear a suit? Do I not? And people will come and they'll ask you for that. Or somebody will be like, Scott, my girlfriend kicked me out, and I have to be out on Saturday, and I need help moving my furniture. And you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that, right? But you are guiding them, right? When you have 5 players, one's going to be behind you, right? And when they see how kind and tolerant and patient you are in playing in running your Dungeons and Dragons game, right, and making these additional worlds for them, they're going to be like, Scott, you've made this super helpful, wonderful world for me here in Dungeons & Dragons. Can you help me make my IRL world better, right? And you're going to guide them, right? And it's not all the time. It's, it might only be 2-3 points in time for a particular player, and but it's real. You will IRL guide players, right, if you engage as Dungeon Master. And this is why I keep repeating, do not call people to be a Dungeon Master lightly. It will impact their real life. It will take time out of their real life, right? It will take emotional equity from them. It will take intellectual equity from them. It will take spiritual equity. Like, sometimes your joy is sapped by, I didn't want to help that player, that player I had move his furniture on a Saturday, but I knew he was at his, one of the lowest points in his life, right? And I had to help, and at the end of the day, I had to guide by saying, you're not as worthless as you think you are because this woman has just left you, right? There's still value in it. I see it, right? Don't give up. I'm guiding you, and it is astounding, right? And guidance, there are guidance counselors, right? There are people who guide people who, through life. Now, what we're doing is not the same as a guidance counselor, but we are guiding, and guidance is a discipline, and we are guides. We guide them as players, we guide them as dungeon masters, and we guide them as people, right? And so what I want to say is dungeon mastering is a calling. Do not impress this request upon anyone. Do not request anyone to become a dungeon master lightly. Think twice. And if a person is struggling in IRL, right, lift them up, get them past the struggle, right? But do not ask them to be a DM while they're struggling with their own while there's more struggle than success, right? We all struggle. I have struggles. I struggle with humility. I struggle with contentment, right? Those are two things I've really struggled with lately. If you're an evangelical Christian, pray for me. I would much be a prayer. If you're not, I'm not sure how you could help, but thanks anyway. So basically, and it's real. Like, this is one of the greatest callings of our lives, and I want to remind each and every one of you, when you say, hey, you should be a dungeon master, you better know what you are asking. You are asking them to emotionally, spiritually, intellectually warp themselves, right? You're calling them to be what is beyond human. Most humans struggle a lifetime to master even a single bullet point for a dungeon master. Dungeon mastering is the call to master 10 bullet points that other humans spend a single lifetime mastering, right? And I believe that Gary knew what he was doing. He was creating the next evolution of humanity. And humanity's next evolution is not physical. It is emotional, spiritual, and intellectual, right? We are going to evolve to have more joy, right? To be able to contain more joy. I contain more joy as a dungeon master than I could as a regular person, because I speak with 1,000 mouths and I live with 1,000 hearts, right? And every player speaks with 100 mouths and lives with 100 hearts. We grow emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. We do not, and actually it's even beyond growth. We transform, and we set the bar for where humanity is going next. That is what it takes to call someone to be a dungeon master. Do not do it lightly. Choose who you ask to do this incredibly carefully, and choose the time you do it incredibly carefully. If you think you found the right person, but their life has more struggle than victory right now, you might have to wait, and you might have to monitor, and you might have to queue your request, right? But do not take the call to dungeon mastering lightly. It is massive. And anyone out there who is telling you that dungeon mastering is easy is, in my humble opinion, outrageously lying and saying something that is not responsible, right? And I want people to be responsible when they call anyone to be a dungeon master, because the idea that it's simple or easy is ludicrous. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.